Welcome to Inside the Music featuring Michael Benedict. Michael is a drummer, band leader, past president of the Albany Musicians Union, and well-known teacher. He has toured extensively, performing with many jazz luminaries in much of the U.S. He's participated in a State Department tour of Tunisia and hosts an interview series, The Altered Scale. But his driving force is his love of hard bop, which is evident from the first note of his recordings to the name of his premier ensemble, Bopitude. While Michael could be content with Bopitude's recreation of the hard bop sound on vintage Blue Note recordings, his musical direction creates an environment where members of his ensemble are not merely copying the past, but are building on it, bringing this classic material to today's audience. Michael's recordings, including his most recent project, Circulation, the music of Gary McFarlane, have been hailed by Downbeat Magazine, National Public Radio, and noted jazz critics.
Hi, my name is Michael Benedict, and I'm very happy to be here with you today. And I'm thrilled to be asked by the Capital District Jazz people to do this short little video on how to listen to a jazz group. We're going to do this mainly for people who have little or no exposure to jazz and what you can expect to hear. And we're going to use a term for what I play mostly. It's called straight ahead jazz. Now, straight ahead jazz is sort of a broad term, and it can encompass several different styles of jazz. But one of the styles within that framework is called bebop. And if you come to see my band Bopitude at a jazz club or a concert, we may open up with this particular tune. And this is a bebop tune. It's called Moose the Mooch, which was written by Charlie Parker. Now, what musicians started to do in the late 1940s and into the early 1950s, especially, is they would take a certain set of chord changes from a popular song of the day, and they would write a new melody to go with those chord changes. And there was a couple different reasons that they did that. Number one is they like to improvise to those particular chord changes. And the second one is more of a financial aspect of this, in that if they wrote a new melody to a song, they didn't have to pay any royalties. So, for instance, there's a very famous and popular song called I Got Rhythm, written by George Gershwin. And since then, there's been hundreds of songs that have been written to the chord changes to George Gershwin. And the musicians didn't have to pay any royalties. That's just how legally it works. So this is called Moose the Mooch, and Charlie Parker wrote a new melody to go with those chord changes. It's a 32 measure form. So it basically has two different parts. It has an A section and a B section. It starts off with an A section that goes 8 measures or bars, and then it's repeated. So far we have 16 measures. The next section is the B section, or what is called the bridge, and that is completely different in terms of melody and harmony. And then we have another A section, which is another 8 measures. So if you add all those up, it's 32 measures. It's A, A, B, A. So that's the song that we're going to play. So I have a quintet, and what I have is a section by itself. It's called the rhythm section, consisting of piano, bass, and drums. And then I also have a trumpet player and a tenor saxophone player. So basically, the different functions of the instruments goes like this. We're going to start with the bass player. The bass player will play what is called a walking bass line. He will play a different note on each of the 4 quarter notes in a measure. Most of the music that we play are in 4/4 time, which means there's 4 beats in each measure or bar. So he's going to play notes that outline the chord changes of the song. The piano player is actually going to be playing the chords to the song with certain rhythms that go with whatever's going on at that particular time. The drummer, I'm the drummer, will provide the rhythmic foundation of the song. I'm relying on something called the cymbal ride beat or rhythm. It goes like this. That's a slow tempo. This particular song goes fast. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we have the horn section. Now, what do? In the beginning, they're going to play the melody of the song. There's a couple of different ways they can do this. They can do it in unison, which means that they are both playing exactly the same thing throughout the 32 measures. Or they can divide it up. For instance, the trumpet player could play an A section and then another A section. The tenor sax could take the bridge, and then the trumpet could come in on the last A. Or they can mix it up a little bit. So there's different ways that we can approach the playing of the melody, which is called the head in jazz terms. So after the melody is done, what do? We improvise, which is really certainly the core of any jazz performance. So we're going to improvise. So let's say the trumpet's going to start. The trumpet is going to improvise using the harmonic material in the song. So he's going to be improvising over the course of the song, the 32 measures. When he gets done with 32 measures, that's called one chorus. So generally speaking, in a live situation, there will be several choruses that he will take. It could go on, 2, 3, 4, 5 choruses. Then the tenor sax will take his solo. Then the piano player will take a solo. And then the bass player could take a solo, although the bass player typically does not solo on every tune. So again, each particular soloist is going through the form of the song, any number of choruses. If we're in the recording studio, usually we will limit it to a certain number of choruses, 1 or 2, just to make the song a little shorter. But in a live performance, we could extend it out. Another thing that we do after that, which is very common, is do something with the drummer, which is called playing fours. Now, playing fours means this. We're going to start with that trumpet player who did his first solo. He's going to play 4 measures, and then I'm going to play 4 measures. Then the tenor saxophone will play 4, and I'll play 4. Then the piano player will play 4, and then I'll play 4. Now, while each one of those instruments is doing their particular 4 measures, the rhythm section, meaning the bass, piano, and drums, are also playing with them. So it's alternating between the soloist and the drummer. And it goes down through the form of the song. It's always going through the form. Now, the drummer himself can take a solo as well. So if the drummer takes a solo, he is actually using the form of the song to create a solo. So in his head, if I'm doing my job properly, I'm thinking of the song and I'm playing a solo based upon the actual song. So it's not just an extended drum solo. Now, there are certain instances where that does happen. The most famous drummer in the world is Buddy Rich, and he used to do that commonly. A couple times a set, he would do an extended drum solo, which is a separate feature, not necessarily to the form of the song. And he would usually count the band in when he was done. But what we're talking about here is a different thing. So I'm going to go through my solo, and if I'm doing everything good, the band can hear, the different parts of the song that I'm playing. And then I'll just look up at the band when I'm coming towards the end of my chorus, my last chorus, and we're in, and we're going to play the head out, and that's basically it. So, over the years, there's been so many different styles of jazz. The jazz started really at the turn of the 20th century, so we're going on 120 years of jazz, and there's been so many different styles, and it continues to develop, on a daily basis. It's important to realize that jazz is not like a museum kind of thing where this is jazz. It's always evolving. Because of that, there's a lot of different styles. So you have to get, when in a performance, you have to get people that are recognize the certain parameters and certain stylistic elements of a particular performance to make a great performance. I'm going to mention one particular record set by Miles Davis, the great trumpet player. He did a one record session, but they made 4 recordings out of it, 4 records. The name of the records are Cookin', relaxing, working, and steaming. And if you listen to that band, I think of it as right place at right time. All those musicians were just at the right time in terms of their conception of what they wanted the music to be. Everybody had their own personality and ways of doing things, but it really came together beautifully. Now, what's very interesting about that particular group is Miles Davis and the tenor saxophonist John Coltrane would go on to form a whole different style and direction of jazz, each on their separate ways. And to do that, they had to eventually find other musicians that could take that journey with them. So, jazz is not a stagnant thing; it's always changing. So, in summary, I hope this, this helps a little bit. The main thing is, you want to feel the jazz. It has to be from here. We don't want to make this an intellectual kind of thing. It has to be from the heart. Sometimes the best performances I go into, in terms of as a listener, the most enjoyable performances I've had in the past is when I just close my eyes and just sort of forget about all the technical aspects and just sort of feel the music, and it's very satisfying. But I'm hoping that some of these things that I've talked to you today about will give you a better idea of what we're doing up there, and so please come out and hear some live jazz when it's safe to do so. And it's important to know that jazz continues today, and I think it's very important to, especially in the Black Lives Matter era. This music is a very beautiful music, but it came out of America's darkest period, which is slavery. So we have to remember where things came from, and I encourage you to check out some of the history of jazz, and it's been quite a ride, and it's going to continue to evolve, and it's never going to stay the same. But anyway, hey, it's been great being with you today, and thanks again to Capital District Jazz, and hope to see you out there. Thanks. Bye.